the McMinnville City Council meeting of May 12th, 2020. And I will request the city recorder to do a roll call. So Claudia, if you could do that.
Councilor Drapkin.
Councilor Drapkin, aye.
Councilor Garvin. Councilor Geary.
Aye.
Councilor Stassens.
Aye.
Councilor Peralta.
Aye.
Council President Minke.
She was on, but she's dropped off, it looks like.
And Mayor Hill.
Here.
Mayor, it looks like Kelly's logged on, but has just stepped away from her monitor.
Okay. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Claudia, for doing the roll call. Again, we welcome council, staff, and others to our meeting this evening. We continue to do the safe practicing and distancing in using Zoom for our meetings. This evening, we've got a number of proclamations, and so I'm going to first go over the National Public Works Week proclamation, and so I will. I think I saw Mike on the line. Mike, are you on the line?
Hi, Mayor.
How are you? Anything you'd like to share with those on the line as it relates to National Public Works Week, and before I read the proclamation?
No, I don't think so. This will be our 14th year celebrating National Public Works Week at the city. It'll be a little different this year. We won't be out to kindergarten classes doing touch-a-truck or holding a barbecue for staff, but perhaps when things are a little more normal, we'll try to plan some follow-up events.
Well, you give us a date, and maybe we can all cook a hamburger at home.
There we go. We'll do it by Zoom.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. So National Public Works Week proclamation, and that is May 17th through the 23rd, 2020. Whereas public work professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are all vitally important to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the city of McMinnville. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public work professionals who are responsible for building, maintaining, improving, protecting our communities' transportation, water and power supply, water and wastewater treatment systems, public buildings, parks and open spaces, and other structures as facilities essential to our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for citizens, civic leaders, and children in the city of McMinnville to gain knowledge and to provide a progressive interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public work programs in our respective community. And whereas the year 2020 marks the 60th annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now, therefore, I, Scott A. Hill, Mayor of the City of McMinnville, do hereby designate the week of May 17th through the 23rd, 2020 as National Public Works Week in the City of McMinnville, and call upon all citizens, business leaders, and civic organizations to recognize and substantially contributions of the employees of the McMinnville Water and Light, and the employees of the city's engineering, public works, and water, wastewater departments make to the protecting of health, safety, and the quality of life. In witness thereof, I have hereto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of McMinnville to be affixed this, the 12th day of May, 2020. And that's signed by Scott A. Hill, Mayor. again, Mike, if you can share with the employees how much we appreciate and the extra efforts that they're doing right now to take care of all those things that were mentioned. So thanks. Our next proclamation is the National Police Week proclamation, and I'll call on Chief Scales to share some thoughts before I read that proclamation. Welcome, Chief.
Hey, good to see everybody. Good to see everybody. I just want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, the City Council, City Manager, department heads, and all our citizens for the continued steadfast support that you've given our police department, not only on Police Officer Memorial Week, but every day. This is a time when we commend the brave men and women of our law enforcement community for continually summoning the courage to fulfill their solemn oath and protect and serve. We also pause to remember the 307 men and women who lost their lives this last year, and those who have suffered permanent disabilities defending their communities and the rule of law. So again, thank you for your support. Your police department truly appreciates that. So thank you again.
Thank you, Chief. So I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Whereas the Congress and the President of the United States has designated May 15th as Peace Officer Memorial Day, and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week, and whereas the members of the law enforcement agency of McMinnville play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and the freedoms of McMinnville, and whereas it's important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of the law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, and by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against opposition. And whereas the men and women of law enforcement agency of McMinnville unceasingly provide a vital public service. Now, therefore, I, Scott A. Hill, Mayor of the City of McMinnville, do hereby proclaim May 10th through the 16th, 2020 to be National Police Week, and call upon all citizens of McMinnville and upon all patriotic, civic, educational organizations to observe the week of May 10th through 16th, 2020 as Police Week, with appropriate ceremonies and observances in which all our people may join in commemorating law enforcement officers, past, present, who by their faithful and loyal dedication to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their community, and in doing so have established for themselves invaluable, enduring reputation for providing the rights and the securities of all citizens. I further call upon all citizens of McMinnville to observe May 15, 2020 as Peace Officer Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in the performance of duty. And let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes. In witness thereof, I have hereto set my hand and caused the official seal of the City of McMinnville to be affixed this, the 12th day of May, 2020, signed Scott A. Hill, Mayor of McMinnville. Chief, again, you don't need to come back to the mic, but just let our officers know how much we appreciate all they're doing, and especially during these trying times when we just take extra precaution to keep our citizens and our staff safe. So thanks, Chief. Our next proclamation is Salvation Army Week, and we've got with us Lieutenant Sandra Solis from the Yamhill County Services and Ministry Center. And Sandra, we've had an opportunity to meet a couple times now. And so why don't you just kind of share just briefly what Salvation Army Week looks like?
Yeah, this week we had some plans, but with everything happening, we've had to change it out a little bit. However, Thursday we'll be handing out little Salvation Army keychains with just a small card to say thank you and just statistics that we've been able to do this past year in helping the most vulnerable people in our communities. And we're just so thankful that we are able to partner with others to continue to serve people in our town. The Salvation Army has been working in communities since 1865, and we're just so thankful that we're able to work in this beautiful town.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Today we had an opportunity to meet two of your board members, the two Dons, and again, it was great pleasure to talk with them. And so I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Whereas the Salvation Army for over 155 years has been meeting human spiritual needs since 1865, when it was founded in England and has spread globally to provide services in 130 countries. And whereas the Salvation Army has been meeting physical, emotional, and spiritual needs of the people of Oregon for 133 years, whereas in 2019, the Salvation Army assisted 6,041 Yamhill County residents, which included providing 29,640 meals. During the Christmas, they assisted 1,064 residents by distributing 2,126 toys and gave out a total of 237 food box. And whereas the Salvation Army through the Oregon Energy Assistance Program has been able to help 231 residents, and whereas the Salvation Army has humbly appreciates the support of thousands of donors, volunteers, and staff who believe in the mission and enable the Army to make a difference in a multitude of lives. Now, therefore, I, Scott A. Hill, Mayor of the City of McMinnville, do hereby proclaim May 11th through 17th, 2020 as Salvation Army Week. And in witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of McMinnville to be affixed this, the 12th day of May, 2020. And that's signed Scott A. Hill, Mayor of McMinnville. Lieutenant, tell those that support the Army how much we appreciate all the things they're doing. We're looking at maybe some exciting things between the Salvation Army and McMinnville down the road. So if you could just tell your board and your volunteers how much we appreciate this. We'll get these signed and all the proclamations signed and get out to you. We may need to mail them that we're distancing, but we'll get that taken care of.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Good to see you. Okay, our next item on our agenda this evening is our comments from citizens. And anyone may speak on a topic other than a matter in litigation, a quasi-judicial land use matter, or a matter scheduled for public hearing at some future date. We're going to keep a timer and we'll only go 3 minutes per person. And again, through the Zoom function, you can raise your hand to request to speak. Once your turn comes upon, please identify who you are, your name and your address. And again, we'll be working with our city recorder, Claudia, to help this happen. And so we'll open up comments from the citizens at this point.
Yes, I'd like to speak if I could.
Okay, Chris, Claudia, could you get information from Chris?
Yeah, I'll write it down if he can provide that slowly to me, please.
My name's Chris Chenoweth. I live at 977 Southwest Dove Court here in McMinnville.
Okay, anytime you'd like to start, Chris, I'll go ahead and you have 3 minutes. You're on mute. Claudia, can you unmute Chris?
We're trying to unmute him, but Chris, can you unmute yourself not allowing us to unmute you.
Chris, if you just touch your space bar.
He fell off of my screen. So anyone else, while we're trying to get Chris back online, anyone else like to address the council this evening? I don't see any others. Yeah, there was just one item in the chat. I'll ask one more time. Chris, are you on the line?
Mayor, if he joins back in while we're doing advice and information, could we revisit and allow him to speak for the 3 minutes when we wrap up advice?
Yeah. I think what we'll do is we'll move on to advice and information, and then if he rejoins us, then we'll give that opportunity. So reports from councilors on committee and board assignments, and I'm just going to kind of start at the top. Kelly, I see you at the top of my screen. Go ahead if you would.
Let's see, I attended a YCAP meeting before this one, and got an email message that they'd gotten $423,000 in a PPP grant. So they're very happy about that. So I wanted to bring that up. Some other things that I've just kind of been trailing on is evidently, I don't see Heather here tonight, but the Housing Authority has come to a financial agreement with the property owners, the Theros, on the property over by the hospital. So there's some affordable housing in the offing that will greatly benefit the community. Visit McMinnville hasn't met since the last meeting, so I don't really have anything on that.
Thank you, Kelly. Let's go over to Wendy. Chris, just to let you know, we're going through reports and we'll hit you in just a few moments.
Hi. Yeah, we had a very interesting meeting. We had the housing center strategy meeting before the MURAC meeting this last week, and it was very enlightening. We did not vote to have it go forward and be approved. We had a lot of questions about it. It showed a pretty big delta between what could be built and what would be able to be rented or sold within our market. And so there's more information that the committee wanted to see before they would make a recommendation to move the report forward in any way. There was some concern about that. And then we followed up with a MURAC meeting that was following that meeting that was pretty quick and brief. We didn't have, gosh, I can't even remember what we talked about. There were not a lot of any new applications or anything like that. We've decided
we looked at the streetscape, I think.
Yeah, and we decided to put a couple of things, wait for a couple of things. So, and we wound up finishing early. So I think the big conversation was really around that housing strategy. So we'll probably circle back and look at that again once Heather has gotten some additional information for us to look at that. And our next meeting will be the first Wednesday of every month. So next June, in June.
Thank you, Wendy. Zach?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. Historic Landmark Committee hasn't had a meeting since last meeting. They have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow, Thursday, meeting scheduled for Thursday around one central question. Landscape Review Committee met today. On their agenda was the First and Johnson apartments, I guess, the ones that right across from Habitat that raised those mobile homes and built some units regarding their project. It got approved, and some street trees. The discussion ended at that meeting with sort of another addition to what was noted as a growing list of, we'd like to talk about all these things that have come up as the end of one application. Man, we should look at fixing this, or not necessarily fixing it. That means something's wrong, but areas to improve. That list has kind of finally grown to a point that I'd like to see the staff bring that list to a work session for that landscape review committee to talk about all those at once and say, okay, here's this growing list that we have. Let's look at code changes, code amendments, additional ordinances or tweaks to the language to say, to implement all these things that the Landscape Review Committee has bumped up into in their several years since any sort of additions. So hopefully we can get staff to work on that, and that can come to us for some review. I know Landscape Review Committee has been putting in a lot of years of a lot of hard work, and they've kind of had this growing list, and I'd like to see that, us pay some attention to that. McMinnville Community Media, wasn't able to go to the last meeting, but Jerry sent me an update that I'll provide here. Number one, although in-studio productions are temporarily halted, MCM continues to operate their cable channels, web stream, and YouTube channels. Half the staff is working from home. Local producers are providing programs through an electronic drop box. And McMinnville Community Media televises live council meetings, work sessions. Hi, everybody. And next week's city budget committee meetings. MCM annual meeting is Monday via Zoom. So thank you to Jerry for giving me that update. And additionally, some committee assignments. MacPac took a 1 month hiatus sort of right in the middle of the COVID, and then just regrouped via Zoom to kind of check the pulse of, hey, the world exploded, what do you guys want to do? And the staff was met with an overwhelming sense of, we're reminded now more than ever that we love public spaces, and we really miss public spaces and can't wait to enjoy public spaces and exciting programming in the future. And we kind of are sitting around and would love to do as many of these damn Zoom things as we can. And so perhaps even talked about a more frequent schedule to A, make up for the missed meeting, B, compress that 18 months if we can, while we've got technology to bring us all together and talk in a roundtable discussion. So it was really, I watched the meeting highlights. It was really a heartwarming video that if anyone wants to be reminded that government can do good, fun things, that was a good video to watch. And then the KOB TAC still is hanging out there, and I know from a good source that the school district has finally figured out Zoom and has got that going almost as well as we do. So perhaps we can look at getting those great policy-making bodies and heads together to talk about how we, because that problem hasn't gone away, and perhaps has only gotten worse as COVID crunches budgets. So those are my updates.
Thank you, Zach. Let's go over to Remy.
Sorry, it always takes a minute for me to get unmuted. Okay, Zach, what did you just say? You said government can do fun and good things? Okay, I don't know if you'd consider this fun. The city of McMinnville worked with YCAP. You'll have to excuse the background noise. I have this new dog. My home internet's down. He can't be crate. He's currently eating every office supply that I own while I'm at the winery, so that it's a thing. Anyway, so please pardon that. The city of McMinnville has been working with YCAP and other cities in the county, as we've been reporting on for the last number of weeks, about setting up a moteling program. You may have seen it reported on in the News Register as well. Here's what I think is really important for the council to know at this point. So YCAP had already started a moteling program, which we expanded upon as part of our emergency shelter. The way that individuals were chosen to participate in this emergency shelter was based on CDC guidelines for the most vulnerable populations. So we're first sheltering seniors and those that are medically compromised. Within that, there have been 41 households total between YCAP's existing program and our emergency shelter program. Jesus, I'm sorry, the dog's a lot of work. That have been housed, and those 41 households equate to about 60 people. What's immediately started happening that the council needs to know about is that because of the stability of having people in the same place where our service provider can access them, we're immediately seeing people going into permanent housing situations. So of the total 41 households in the moteling program, 22 of them are a result of the city's moteling efforts. Already, 6 families have had a quote unquote positive exit, which means that 6 households have already transitioned into more permanent housing. There's also been a 7th transition into positive housing. It wasn't permanent housing, but there was a specific person that had been in the system for a long time. That person doesn't have a cell phone. Whenever there was a bed available, this person was never able to be reached. Because of having the stability of housing, that person has also made a positive exit from the YCAP services into a transitional facility. We had one negative exit, and we did just get updated statistics today, and so the statistics are a little different than those ones from last week, and I did have them pulled up here, and I can give you slightly more, but it's about that's about all those numbers are fairly approximate. I do want to stress that we are housing the most vulnerable, so it is very linked in with what's happening with COVID-19, in which those who are the most vulnerable, it's not just anybody, it's those who are most vulnerable who would there's a greater potential for them to end up in hospitals or be putting demands on EMS. We have we've provided a quarantine space for. Also, I'll note that if this moteling program had not been in place, regardless of your perspective on reopening, which I know those are varied, the county would not have qualified for our application without the moteling program, which is fairly significant. So those are the Gospel Rescue Mission is also doing a great job. They have systems in place for keeping social distancing, and they are continuing to work at capacity and provide that shelter as well. So in terms of the funding, in here we've discussed the city of McMinnville put in $20,000 of funding. The city of Newburgh put in $15,000. The county last week voted to approve $50,000 worth of funding. All of that should be reimbursed through FEMA. And we do have an ask going to all of the smaller cities that they kick in $1,250 each, which would allow for multiple months of funding and hopefully bring us through the worst part of this emergency pandemic. And then we've also submitted a letter to the governor in support of, if there is a special session, that we bring back House Bill 4001 for approval, as has been noted in here already. But in terms of linking that to what's currently happening, I would again like to emphasize that in less than 2 months, only able to fill 22 rooms with the funding models we've come up with. We have had 6 people transition into permanent housing. So when we're talking long-term about a navigational center and how that could benefit the city of McMinnville, look at this immediate data that we are collecting, that sometimes people, I think, question whether or not a housing first model is the best model, but the stability, regardless of the roots of the problem that leads somebody to being unhoused, the roots of the problem are able to be addressed when we provide stability for those households. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, fun.
Sal? You're muted.
Can people hear me?
Yep.
Oh, sorry about that. Remy, thank you for that report. That's really great news. My report is pretty brief. Council of Governments has not met since the last meeting, but we did send some materials. I mean, they had a pretty extensive report of granting opportunities, some of which I hadn't seen before, so I've forwarded those on to staff. And I also wanted to make a note that I will be sending a written draft of notes for the Budget Committee tomorrow. And I wasn't sure if I needed to note that in the public record tonight so that it could be distributed to the Council and Budget Committee ahead of the meeting. That's it.
Thank you, Sal. Adam?
Airport Commission decided not to meet this month due to lack of items on the agenda, and I hope to get out here later this week and check out that fuel tank, see if we've started on that or not. The YCOM board is going to meet Thursday for a budget meeting, and then our regularly scheduled meeting after that. Nothing too exciting in YCOM. We're just going to go for our standard middle of the road rate increase we go for every year to create sustainability in the fund, and keep carrying that forward. Outside of that, last week was National Nurses Week, as well as May 4th was National Firefighters Day, so I'd like to honor them. And I know we got a lot of emails today from nurses, so if you guys want to reach out to them and honor them for the work that they've been doing, as well as their fire staff that are on the Zoom call, thank you for the work you've been doing.
Thank you, Adam. I've been out of town for a week and a half, but Zoom works wherever you are. A lot of reports from the city committees that have already been had. Just to give you a couple of thoughts, I've been working diligently on the conferences for the Mayor's Association and League of Oregon Cities, and it looks like both of those conferences are going to this year come out in some type of digital or virtual electronic form, given that we're not to be meeting in large groups until at least September 31st. So some interesting pieces around that. We're trying to do some innovative things and taking conferences. Maybe, I know the mayor's conference, we're looking at 2 half-day sessions, and LOC tomorrow will make a determination whether they're completely going to do that virtually. Also, have had an opportunity to be involved with LOC's weekly meeting. Again, great information coming from that meeting and the group that are associated with that. You know, as we look at reopening communities, primarily counties, county by county, and following the guidelines of the governor, more to come on that front. My understanding is Yamhill County has determined that they're going to be moving forward following the governor's guidelines for reopening, and what that looks like, more to come at a later date. Also, we've been doing a Yamhill County just kind of speaking to our citizens, includes our legislature, it includes county, city, and nonprofits. That happens on Tuesday and that happens on Friday. I've had an opportunity to be on a couple of White House calls, just getting a source of what's happening from the national perspective, and that's been fairly good. And then continue to have my meetings with our partners out there, whether that be the chamber or MEDP, Downtown Association. A lot of good things still continuing to happen at the stable table, and I'll leave that to Jeff to share a few of those things from that perspective. Okay, I'm just going to see if I can cover staff that I see. Mike, do you have anything for us this evening?
Just a quick note for Adam, we've reviewed the submittals for the Jet A tank, but it'll be a few months in production before they actually start any work at the airport. So not much to see out there this week.
Thank you, Mike. Jennifer, we have some meetings coming up with the budget committee. Why don't you update us a little bit?
Yeah, it's next week is going to be a really busy week. So budget committee is Monday at 6, and if we need a second meeting, we will resume Wednesday at 6. Got the budgets out, are encouraging folks to submit questions ahead of time, so maybe we can turn some answers and have data and any clarifying comments before the budget committee at those meetings. And then in terms of municipal court, next Wednesday, the 20th, will be our first foray into remote video processing of, gosh, I guess I am new to municipal court, but we will be having our traffic docket done virtually using the GoToMeeting platform. So we've been testing that, and we're really excited to see how that all works for folks. So that's what I can share at this point.
Thank you, Jennifer. Let's go to Kylie. Welcome.
Hi there. So not much to report on my end from HR. I wanted to let the council know that after your moving the city manager to sign the CBA with the police union, we've since had that signed by all parties. It's now up on the city's website, so if anybody wants to take a look at that contract, they're not the most exciting things, but we live and die by them here, so that's up on our website. And I just also wanted to let the council know that employees of the city of McMinnville have been doing a really fantastic job working in these kind of strange conditions. We have close to 80 employees that are working remotely in some capacity. I've been impressed with everybody's ability to pull together and figure it out and still maintain a really high level of productivity despite the circumstances. So just a shout out to our staff for doing a really great job, whether they're working like me from their kitchen table sometimes or out in the field, maybe on a staggered shift or in just a bit of a different capacity. So we're all doing a really great job.
Well, thank you for all of your hard work.
Thank you.
Let's go to Scott Burke. The mastermind behind all of our Zooming.
Just to add a couple things, yeah, I got to come over to the front to talk to you all. So just while we're talking about Zoom too, well, to start with, we've been helping the court a lot. As Jennifer mentioned, they're going to be using the GoToMeeting product because it has a little bit more security than Zoom does right now. There's also a pretty big update coming out for Zoom at the end of the month where they're doing a lot of security work. So everyone's going to see these update messages come up when you launch it. So make sure you say yes to that at some point, because eventually you're going to be in a hurry to get into a meeting and then it's going to want to update and it's going to take a little time. It's a big update. So, and beyond that, we're just helping each one of those 80 employees connect to the people that are in the offices. We're helping keep the cars and the trucks running, and we're pretty busy. So.
Thank you, Scott. I know, yeah, this technology, we are are on a fairly steep learning curve, but it's becoming kind of the new norm, isn't it?
It is. It's amazing how quickly everyone adapts, and you change your habits, you change your patterns and your schedules. And there's a lot of people, still in the city, in city buildings, like police and fire, people that are working shifts all the time. And, we try to stagger our shifts, so we usually have somebody around to help them out. So it's kind of a hybrid mode, but everybody's making it work and doing what they have to do.
Well, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rich, I see you're still on the line. Yep.
I certainly am, and my camera did something somehow. I don't know what that's all about. Self-moving. Just a couple of updates. We completed and submitted 42,000 grant application for PPE through the Assistance to Firefighters grant. It was a grant that was supplemented through the CARES Act. I don't know when we'll hear from them on that application process. We are still working through the FEMA reimbursement process. The 19th is our big kickoff meeting with our new support staff from FEMA and OEM. So we should have some more information, and we'll be working with Jennifer in finance on some of the requirements for some of the tracking. We've been tracking pretty diligently over here, making sure we don't cross-apply depending on which grants we're applying for and try and double dip. Last thing I want to do is go to jail for two masks paid for by two different grants with the same mask. And that's about where we're at right now. We're working on still trying to gain most of our PPE that has been on back order for quite some time and is still on back order. So we're still working through those processes.
Thank you, Chief. Matt, are you still in the Civic Hall?
Yes, I'm the gift that never leaves.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you. Real quick updates. Last Monday, we brought on Aaron White. He's from Salem PD, and he will start training within a couple weeks. So we're excited to get him on the road. He's already been to the academy. Two of our trainees right now are doing exceptionally well, Officer Madison and Hanson. A quick update, since our SROs are not deployed to both the middle school and the high school, they have been folded back into the patrol section and are doing well. Kylie mentioned with the MPA and the CDA reaching an agreement, our corporal process has commenced, and we are excited probably by the end of this month, early June, to announce 4 new promotions within the PD. That's exciting. And then lastly, a little update, and I can give you a little bit of information. We had some success in taking down a known commercial burglar ring this last week or two, and our efforts continue out there to identify and arrest those that are committing those burglaries. As I mentioned the last council meeting, we've seen a real uptick in commercial burglaries, and our staff's diligence has paid dividends in identifying and arresting some, and we still continue to seek out others. So that's what I've got. Any questions?
Any questions for the chief? Thank you, Matt.
Thanks.
I know that Susan was on our level 10 call, but I didn't see any agenda items, and I don't know that I saw Jenny.
I'm here.
Okay.
Susan's here.
Susan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Susan Muir, your Parks and Rec Director. Councilor Geary, thank you for covering the MACPAC meeting. Just as a refresher, so everybody knows, that's your 20-person, 18-month committee that is looking at all of our facilities and thinking about how we can program those and build those for the future going forward. We are learning a lot about reopening in Parks and Rec and reviewing all of the governor's guidelines for how we might reopen things. And I just want everybody to know we are focusing on slow, steady, and safe for our reopenings. We've been contacted by a lot of our community members that are ready to go right back to where we were. And we appreciate everybody's patience while we're trying to figure out how we do that in a safe manner to keep both the public and our employees safe. Unfortunately, because of the COVID pandemic, we did have to cancel the baseball and softball season this summer. We're really going to miss seeing everybody down at Joe Dancer. We sent the word out about that today. So we just are unable to meet the governor's guidelines in terms of crowd size down at Joe Dancer. So we had to cancel that. We will be looking for opportunities to do some type of activity over the summer, learning more about how the guidelines might fit different types of activities. And that also applies to summer concerts. That's something that we've put on for more than 3 decades in the city of McMinnville, and given the recent cancellation and prohibitions against large activities, we will unfortunately need to cancel the summer concert series for the city that we held at City Park last summer. So those are the sort of downsides of COVID-19. I'm gonna tell you though, even though the weather is bad, we're posting new things on our Mac2U, our online recreation system. So for this week, because the weather is bad, we've got Mad Libs on there, we've got indoor scavenger hunts, and you could also try peanut butter and jelly sushi rolls. We've got some recipes on there. We have a dice game about working out by rolling the dice. And if you don't have a set of dice at home, that's okay, because we have a template for how you can make your own. So everybody should check out Mac2U online. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Jenny?
Hi, thanks, Mayor. So we're up to over 600 people signed up for delivery, home delivery in the city limits of McMinnville, and are making 3 times a week visits to make those deliveries. We're also still managing to do a lot of printing for folks, printing off tax forms. That was one of the things that the library was one of the only places where that could happen. And that's still going on. And we just tape those tax forms in an envelope with the person's name on it to the front door of the library, and they can come and pick them up. And as Susan and Zach both said, the MacPac meeting was a great thing to have, and to hear feedback from that committee that unanimously everybody was ready to move forward. Also, with the news that the county had put in an application for reopening, that was really of course, we've been looking at how we would do phased reopening at the library, but we're thinking about that in much more specific terms at this point in time, and we'll likely have a plan in place by next week, not an opening next week, but a plan in place for a phased reopening.
Thank you, Jenny. I'll call out and see if Heather is on the line. I didn't see her, but there we go.
So good evening. Just wanted to let you know that we signed contracts for the $500,000 from the Community Development Block Grant Funds for McMinnville to be able to help invest in some of our manufactured homes and bring them up to better standards for living. So we are ready to start with that program. We're partnering with the Housing Authority, and Darcy Reynolds is already out looking at projects and getting those put together so we can start deploying those funds. So that's good news.
Thank you, Heather. I'll move up to Walt. Anything for us, Walt?
Mayor, members of the council, the only thing I'd like to report is that since your adoption of the campaign finance disclosure bill, the Supreme Court has issued a ruling in the Multnomah County ordinance case, and it issued a sweeping reversal of its former Vanada case, where it had limited local campaign contribution ordinances and standards within the state of Oregon. So this is going to open the door to a number of jurisdictions taking another look at the question of campaign finance contribution limits. The Portland ordinance is in the Court of Appeals, which will undoubtedly move forward based upon the Supreme Court's ruling. The Supreme Court remanded the Multnomah County ordinance back to the Circuit Court for a ruling on whether or not the Multnomah County contribution limits violate the federal constitution, since they've been ruled not to violate the Oregon Constitution at this juncture. So stay tuned. This issue is going to come back. I'm sure Sal is well aware of this decision, and it does open up the prospect for McMinnville to expand the scope of its campaign finance regulation should the council choose to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Walt. Claudia, anything for us?
Nothing from me, council. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. In the context of the Yamhill County request to reopen and still pending direction from the governor's office, we have been talking with our stable table partners about a couple of initiatives that we may be able to move forward on. Most specifically, the possibility of what we're calling a spill out opportunity for downtown food and beverage businesses. We're working with the McMinnville Downtown Association to explore opportunities to create some additional seating opportunities outside for folks on weekends. I think it will still take us several weeks to work through the details on that. And again, it's going to be pending some determination from the governor's office, but we are working with our stable table partners on that. Hope that it gives folks an opportunity to experience at least a little bit of our downtown. I'm planning to take some time off next week. I'll be, at this point, expect to be out of the office from the 21st through the 26th, although I will be back in time for the council meeting on the evening of the 26th. Chief Scales will be in town and can be your local point of contact should I end up traveling. And then just a reminder that I believe Chris Chenoweth is still on the line if you want to get back to him and give him his 3 minutes, Mayor. That completes it.
Yeah, I have him on. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, Chris, we've have 3 minutes for you to address the council. So go ahead and unmute, and I'll start the timer. There you go.
All right. So it won't let me undo my camera, so you get the pleasure of not having to look at me. That's probably to your benefit and not mine. Oh, there we go. All right.
There we go.
So first off, Mayor and members of the council, I want to thank you for all that you're doing during this time. And I also want to, in light of your proclamations, want to thank Public Works Department for their work, the Police Department, who I always wave and say thank you to when I see their members around the community, and of course the Salvation Army for their work. I'm going to be kind of tagging in a little bit on, and I don't know if I'm crossing onto lines of things that can't be talked about, but on the level 10 meetings of the last couple of weeks. First, I do think the council would be tone deaf at this point to try to pass any levies or fees. The community is struggling. Your business community is struggling. This is not the time to be entertaining added regulations by bringing in DEQ or bringing in added levies and fees. We need to be more cognizant of where our business community is at and where our residents are at. I really appreciate the words of one of the council members who was talking about if you're not in their environment, you don't know what it's like and what they're facing and the uncertainty that people are facing right now. And we really need to be cognizant of that. We really need to be considering that. I would also urge, as fast as we can reopen and as much as the city can do to help that process, to please do so. If you're in a lower income environment where you don't have job security, and the council member that brought this up was talking about even vice presidents of large corporations that don't have job security. They're scared. We are looking at an economic crash unlike anything any of us have ever experienced. It's facing us, and it's coming hard and fast. I'm concerned that we're not really facing the real devastation that's coming at us and understanding it to the level that it's coming at us. I think it goes without saying at this point that the cure that our state government tried to come up with is going to be far more painful than what COVID-19 actually was. So I'm just asking, please do what you can to speed up the process, to help the residents of McMinnville, and to help provide security and financial stability, because it's going to be painful going forward, and not just in money. That's small. That's not important. That really doesn't matter. But it's the impact it has on lives and the impact it has on the well-being of our community. And I want to end with this. I don't think it was mentioned in any of the meetings, but a couple of weeks ago, 1882 opened up and said, we're going to give free meals to everybody. And it was one of the, I took advantage of it because I felt like it was a community thing. I left a large tip hoping that it would go to help people. It was an amazing event. It showed the greatness of McMinnville. And it's what we all need to be doing, working together. I want to thank them, give a shout out to those folks, and thank you guys again for all you're doing.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. Okay, that now takes us to the discussion we had on our level 10. And I'm just going to give a simple vote of the council on the SAFER grant, and that would be to ask staff to move forward with an application for the SAFER grant. And then there was a caveat that if we get the grant, then we would bring this back to vote within the 30 days to see if that's something that fits within the parameters of the information that we have at that time. And so I'm just going to reach out and just, Wendy, go ahead. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if, I know that idea came up at the end of the meeting. I was wondering if, I wanted to hear from Jeff and Chief Lightfoot to see if there's any downside that we would need to be aware of before we would vote to going ahead and submitting the application and then deciding to decline it. And how much like with regards to resource use, time, anything that we should know before we vote on this, assuming that caveat that we could decline it if we wanted to with the additional information that we'd have.
Thank you for those questions, Wendy. We'll turn to the chief first, and then Jeff.
Mr. Mayor, as far as resource and time, I was working both grants in the same platform simultaneously. The narrative is the one portion of the grant, which is a large part of the justification for need that I will need to have finished by Friday. So as I was given direction from council to be ready to prepare a grant if necessary, and that was the work that's been done already. So a few, I would say 6 or 8 more hours on narrative cleanup, and it would be ready to submit if that's the council's direction.
Thank you, Chief. Jeff, anything that you'd like to add?
I'm not as familiar with the current iteration of the SAFER grant as the chief. It's a pretty large program. It's typically substantially oversubscribed. I'm not sure if ultimately declining a grant has any lasting ramifications. The grant standards and goals tend to be different from year to year, and I think there's probably not a lot of risk if the council were to decline a grant. I don't know that it would create any downside for future grant cycles. That would not be my expectation.
Thank you. Any other questions from council for the chief or Jeff? Hearing none. Claudia, if I could have you just kind of poll the council and record their vote. Again, this is just, it's an informal, but if you would do that for us.
Councilor Drapkin.
Why don't we come back to Remy?
Councilor Garvin.
This is for 3-person SAFER grant, correct?
Yes.
Aye.
Councilor Geary.
Aye.
Councilor Stassens.
Aye.
Councilor Peralta.
Aye.
Council Drapkin is having issues unmuting her mic.
Aye.
Oh, there we go. And Council President Minke.
Nay.
Okay, we have ayes 5, nays 1. And so I think, Chief, you've got the the go-ahead to move forward to apply for the SAFER grant with 3 firefighters, and then we'll go through that process and we will have a final vote. If we are accepted for the grant, we will have a final vote within the 30 days to move forward. We will quite possibly have maybe the report from our from the group that's doing our analysis, and it gives us more opportunity. Thank you for the process of going through the level 10 that got us to this point, to listen to everyone's views and to have an informed discussion and come up with an action plan. So I think another win for level 10. I think it's done well from that perspective. Okay, with that being said, tonight we have 3 resolutions that we are going to be going over. Our first resolution is resolution number 2020-29, a resolution awarding the contract for the Lafayette Avenue Overlay Project 2019-9. And so, Mike, we'll call on you to do an overview of this resolution.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. I'll refer you to the brief staff report that's in your packet from Project Manager Roy Marquis. Also, the proposed resolution is included, and the project vicinity map, which outlines the limits of the project, which is in the Lafayette Avenue overlay between 99W and a point between 8th and 9th Street. We opened bids on April 23rd, received 7 bids. The bid from Baker Rock Resources in the amount of $1,291,576.20 was deemed to be the lowest responsible and responsive bid. You'll recall at your last meeting, we approved a fund exchange agreement with the state to fund $1 million of the project. The remainder of the project funds will be in the transportation fund and are primarily a share of the city's highway fund revenues we get from the state. So the project is expected to start in July, although we may be out in June working on ADA ramps, and is expected to be completed mid-October. It's a pretty substantial arterial, as you know, and we've done a lot of outreach to businesses along the corridor, and we'll make sure we have communication up and down the corridor and advanced warning signs so the public knows schedule as we get rolling. So unless there are any questions, staff would recommend you adopt the resolution as proposed.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike from the council? Hearing none, I will take a motion to approve resolution 2020-29.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Zach and seconded by Adam. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Resolution 2020-29 passes unanimously 6-0. That takes us this evening to our second resolution, 2020-30, a resolution approving the acquisition of property and a temporary construction easement from SMS on Old Sheridan Road Improvement Transportation Project. And we'll turn that over to Mike to share the details about that resolution.
Once again, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. In your packet, you'll have a staff report from Engineering Services Manager Larry Sherwood, as well as a number of attachments related to this item, including the proposed resolution authorizing the property purchase. This is the last piece of right-of-way and last easement needed for the Old Sheridan Road Corridor project, which you've awarded the construction contract for at your last meeting. This, as the mayor noted, is a purchase from SMS Homes to accommodate an additional left turn lane and sidewalks at the intersection of Old Sheridan Road and 99W. The total settlement amount is $25,100, and of course there'll be escrow and closing costs in addition to that. Funds for this purchase were included in the project budget, which is contained in the transportation fund. So unless there are any questions, staff would recommend you adopt the resolution as presented.
Any questions for Mike from council? Hearing none, I will then ask for a motion to approve resolution 2020-30.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
It's been moved by Adam and seconded by Sal. All in favor of, on the motion of resolution 2020-30, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Resolution 2020-30 passes unanimously 6-0. This takes us to our last resolution for the evening of 2020-31, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement, an IGA, between the City of McMinnville and McMinnville Water and Light for construction costs related to a new public water main and electric facility improvement for the old Sheridan Road Transportation Bond Measure project. And so, Mike, we'll call on you again to update us on this project.
Once again, Mayor and members of the council, you have a staff report in your packet from Larry Sherwood, as well as the proposed resolution, the intergovernmental agreement, and the prior executed intergovernmental agreement related to design for the project. As we noted when we did the bid award, Schedule B of the project is work for McMinnville Water and Light on a water line and electrical facilities within the corridor. This intergovernmental agreement memorializes how we'll administer Schedule B for them and how they'll reimburse the city for those costs. You'll recall, in addition to the design work we did on this project with McMinnville Water and Light, we've also recently coordinated on work on Alpine and on Hill Road, and we're working together on utilities for ODOT's 3 Mile Lane bridge replacement. So in the spirit of National Public Works Week, I think that's a positive sort of partnership that we have with our partners at Water and Light, where we're working together to minimize costs and have some efficiencies in design and in construction, where we're not having to be in the same space at the same time. It's actually coordinated. So it's a success story. Funds are included in the transportation fund, and of course will be reimbursed by McMinnville Water and Light. So unless you have any questions, I'd recommend you adopt the resolution as presented.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions from the council to Mike on this resolution? Hearing none, then I will take a motion to approve resolution 2020-31. And I have Zach, and who seconded?
I did.
Wendy. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed by saying nay? Resolution 2020-31 passes unanimously 6-0. That concludes our city council this evening, reminding everyone that you've got a weekend of working on budget, I would guess, as we prepare for our 6 o'clock meeting on Monday. Again, reach out to Jennifer or Jeff if you have any questions as you're going through those preparations. Also, I will just say Kelly would be willing to take any questions also as council president. Again, thank you everyone for a great discussion tonight. I think we've been able to do some good things this evening. So again, as they say, stay home, stay safe, okay?
Read those budgets.
Bye, everyone.